Deep Threat Sports Network. It's your friendly friends here from Deep Threat Sports Network. It's me, Dave, Colin over there to my right. It might be your left on your screen, but the guy with a hat. And then everybody knows Brian. Brian's the guy here with us. So he brings all the knowledge, all the IQ. We have been out kind of not as active in the last really the last 2 to 3 weeks, with holidays, sicknesses. I think everybody got that virus going around. Everybody's had it. Somebody's had it. Somebody in your family has. So we've been real busy, but we're excited to be back. We're going to start coming back at you, on a weekly basis. We've been communicating, but it's been hard to kind of get on and, have some time to do the episodes. But like we said, we're going to go back to doing it once a week for sure. And even after the playoffs, we're going to keep talking because there's just a lot to come once the season ends because there's a lot of movement all around everybody. So like I said, we're going to be tuned in, and just right off the bat, one thing I want to talk about was something that happened over the weekend, which was the FCS National Championship. Well, no, it wasn't over the weekend. It was this week, actually. But again, you would have looked at this game, you would have asked me, I would have told you North Dakota State University because that's the only team that, I feel like the average person knows from the FCS, which is the lower tier essentially to Division I football. But the big thing is they got their fifth title in 8 seasons. I mean, at what point do you just say, hey, you just need to play in the FBS with the big guys? I don't know kind of how that works, but they did get a win 35-32 over undefeated Montana State, which is the number 1 seed. I believe they were 14-0 going into this game. I mean, it seemed like a competitive game, especially at the beginning. I thought Montana State was probably going to knock them off, but then North Dakota State, they've just been building for years. They got a solid program. I mean, Cam Miller threw for 199 yards, 2 touchdowns, and ran for 121 yards and 2 more scores. I mean, the guy was just a monster. And then Bryce Lance, Trey Lance's brother, by the way, had a career game, 9 receptions for 107 yards and 1 touchdown. I mean, everything was just working out right for North Dakota State. I think this is their 10th title total. So they're just the dominant team. You expect them to, be in the talking to win this every year. But it was a great game. I know Brian watched a little bit of it, but I just want to kind of throw that out there for those of you that do keep up with FCS football. Hey, and if you guys like FCS football, let us know who's your team, who do you root for, and we'll definitely start tuning in a little bit more. But like I said, just good information to have. Next thing I want.
Hey, real quick, Dave. Though I wasn't going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but South Dakota State, North Dakota State, powerhouses in the FCS. Those 2 teams battle it out very often. You wouldn't think that in the Dakotas up there. Also, this was probably the best playoff game of any playoff game damn near we've watched so far in all of football. I mean, this was a fantastic game. And Brian said it earlier before we hopped on here that he watched the whole entire football game, didn't miss a snap. So this was fantastic football. Tune in next year for sure.
Absolutely. But one thing I want to talk about, I kind of hinted on it a little bit earlier, is, we're going to keep talking after the playoffs because the transfer portal is something that's going to be very popping, once this season ends. I mean, it's already got some good stuff going on. So what do you guys think about the transfer portal? Like, what is some relevant facts that you guys, want to touch on, something that maybe, you feel maybe people aren't aware of in regards of like, who's who with the recruiting, like who's getting the bigger recruits, who's not doing well. How does the portal look? What do you guys think?
It's been kind of wild ever since the season ended. The transfer portal opened. I think it was the following Monday after Selection Sunday when all the bowl games and the playoff committee announced the bracket is when it started. Is when it opened. It ran for about 3 weeks. Teams that were in playoff games, players could opt in. It's been basically the Wild West since then. If you're in a bowl game, you had a 5-day window after your bowl game to go into the transfer portal. So obviously the 4 teams that are still alive haven't participated much in it yet, but there's still been some players in and out on those teams as well. It's been kind of crazy. We can kind of discuss kind of the top 5 here. We're going to look at on 3 real quick and just kind of take a brief glance at who's where. Coming at number 5, we have Michigan. They have 23 guys going out, 10 coming in. But obviously the 10 coming in are a lot more highly ranked and played more. Miami, 16 out. At number 4, 16 out, transfers out, 10 in. Ole Miss, 17 out, 18 in. Number 2, we have our Missouri Tigers, 15 out,
Missouri Tigers,
14 in.
This.
And then number 1, Texas Tech is 14 out and 17 in. So, those teams have definitely taken advantage of the early window.
Well, fellas, I think more shocking to me than even Mizzou being number 2 is Texas Tech being number 1. That to me is absolutely wild. They have something good going over there right now. Like you talked about, Brian, 17 transfers in with an average rating of 81.59. We're talking 9 4-stars they're bringing in. Obviously, no real 5-stars in the transfer portal. So 9 4-stars coming in is absolutely spectacular. Got an index score of 73. And to put that in perspective, Mizzou is at number 2, which is shocking, with an index score of 52. So they're 21 points better on the index score. That's spectacular. Good stuff going over there for Texas Tech. But like Dave said, too, don't want to spend a whole lot of time on the transfer portal in this episode. Just wanted to throw at you the top 5 teams so far dipping into the portal. And Bryant touched on this as well. The 4 final teams, Ohio State, Texas, Notre Dame, Penn State, not a whole lot of activity going on from those teams yet. Really not a whole lot of activity going on from any playoff team just yet. You're seeing these playoff teams really trying to rekindle what they had from last year, trying to bring as many guys as they can back, because obviously it was working. We saw Sam Levitt announced he was going to come back for Arizona State. Big keep for them. A lot of these playoff teams doing a really good job of keeping players home and not letting them get out. So absolutely, Dave, like you said, once the playoffs are over, I promise you guys every week we will have episodes coming for you still. We'll dive into the transfer portal. We'll probably do some full team breakdowns, some team reviews, how we thought they did this season. Just a lot of really good stuff. And also, I'm kind of getting my moment here for a second. Dave also touched on it. We've been busy as hell. I know everybody understands that. I'm sure everybody that listens has been busy as hell, not had as much time. Our socials have still been active. We've still been putting our Book It segment out on our socials. So make sure you're following us, especially over on Twitter, X, call it what you want, at DT_sports_. That is where we're the most active. Facebook's really where we just share our videos so you guys can get in touch a little bit easier. But absolutely, fellas, the transfer portal is on fire, and I cannot wait to come back and circle back to that once the playoff season is over.
Colin, I want one hot. Well, actually, Colin and Brian, I want a hot take from both of you. You guys always have good hot takes. Out of the playoff teams, is there any? What player would you say you're most confident that will enter the portal following?
So real quick here, I was really hot on this trail before the portal opened, before the playoffs started. I don't know. Our loyal listeners probably remember me talking about this. I know Dave and Bryant remember me dropping this because it was pretty hot. I had mentioned, I think, Milroe, which I know they're not in the playoffs. I had mentioned Milroe, I think, hops in the portal. He has actually now declared for the draft, which is kind of shocking to me. Didn't really see that coming. Carson Beck was a guy I hinted around about. We saw him tear his UCL and go to the draft. Absolutely terrible move. If I was in his camp, I would have advised him to do the opposite of that. But another guy that I had mentioned, and I am going to stay hot on this one, is Quinn Ewers. They are in the Final Four, but I feel like there is some real traction heating up at that camp for him to hop the portal if he doesn't go to the draft. I don't see him being the starting quarterback of the Texas Longhorns next year. That's my hot take.
So you're saying he's going to take $7 million? Because I've been hearing a number of $7 million for Quinn Ewers.
Yeah, he's not worth $7 million. I'm going to be honest with you guys. If Brian, give me yours real quick, and
Duke's playing the guy from Tulane, $8 million,
which is nuts. That's absolutely insane to me. That's insane. But Brian, give me your hot take real quick.
Ohio State seems to always pull the big names in. I don't see anybody leaving from there. Honestly, Ewers was my pick too. I know we talked about that a bunch. The guys at Notre Dame, I don't know. They just the last 4 that remain are all their big time players typically stay. So I don't know.
Well, I would say they stay, or they're draft eligible.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. Just to throw a dart here, this has no traction probably whatsoever. But if we're just gonna take a hot take, I don't know. Maybe you could see a guy like Nico. I think there's the 2% chance at most. But I'm just spitballing here, thinking of playoff teams and quarterbacks that maybe could get poached to go elsewhere. But I'm with you, Brian. I think Quinn Ewers is the biggest name of these playoff teams that will probably work his way to the portal. And I feel like I would put that over a 50% chance at this point.
Yeah.
And the reason I push back on the $7 million is, yes, he's won big games. Yes, he's done really good things. Obviously, he's had Texas in the Final Four the last 2 seasons, so he is doing something correct. But we have talked about it on this network many times. Ever since his injury, the guy's got no zip on the football. It really reflects on their red zone offense. To me, he's probably like number 3, if not number 4, of the Final Four quarterbacks remaining. If I was to power rate the Final Four quarterbacks, like I'd probably have him 3 or 4. I would have Riley Leonard or Quinn Ewers 3 and 4 personally.
Mm-hmm.
I think Riley Leonard is really good, obviously, and it's working. But as a passer, it would be a tight fight for me right now between Quinn Ewers and Riley Leonard at the bottom of that.
Yeah, I think if we're talking impact players in the hot take, I think Quinn Ewers is really the only pick. So, I mean, Colin kind of stole my thunder there, but we've been talking about it for a while. So I think that's just what we're going to come to an agreement as a show is I think Quinn Ewers is probably the guy that's going to shock and probably enter the portal.
You could
Well,
have saw a guy like Evan Stewart maybe. Like he decided he was going to come back to college. He plays for Oregon. For those that don't know that out there, I'm just dropping a name. But Evan Stewart, I mean, for me, he could be a little confused about who his quarterback's going to be next year, and I think he's a very impactful wide receiver 1 if he was to go somewhere else. But I also had mentioned Sam Levitt. I really did think, fellas, honestly, that Sam Levitt could have found his way to a different school after what he did in the playoffs. I know it was a 1-game showing, but he was definitely better than Quinn Ewers in that football game, in my opinion. And he's young. He has proved that he can go win you some football games. But that Kenny Dillingham connection and that relationship's probably pretty strong. That was a team right there that you could tell just had a really good bond, and they played for one another. So it's probably pretty hard for him to hop ship. But hey, he got an NIL deal to stay anyway, so that's out of the question too.
well, I don't want to like hang around transporter too much more, but I just got a question just because it just hit me. Colin, you may know a little bit about this impact, but what does Bill Belichick at UNC do to college football? Like, is he going to make that big of an impact? Like, you think it's not going to be as big as people say he is? Because I've kind of been eyeing. He's going after some pretty heavy players. like, and I mean, I would imagine if you're UNC, if you bring in somebody like Bill Belichick, like you're trying to win, like you're trying to be in the playoffs, like you're making a push.
Well, and his deal was only for what, 2 or 3 years. I mean, this is a short window. This is them trying to, put UNC not really on the map because they're always on the map, but like really push that playoff caliber window. But our last episode, we really dove into this a little bit and talked about the Bill Belichick effect and how he's a hard-nosed coach. And there's a certain type of player that only works for Bill Belichick type football. So it's tough for me, man. I'll be honest. We haven't seen a whole lot of splashes for UNC at this point. I don't feel like we have. I don't feel like I've, opened up my phone, done some research, and been like, holy shit, Belichick's got it popping already. I don't feel like I felt like that yet. So for me, I don't know, Dave. It's tough. I also read today that, teams are trying to exercise Belichick's NFL. Does he have any interest? They trying to get some interest in Belichick? I saw the Las Vegas Raiders reached out to him. My boy Tom Brady reaches out to him and asked if he has any interest. And the last thing I read was Belichick has said no. He's comfortable with the North Carolina gig. So he has to feel some type of way and feel somewhat good about it. And their collective gives a lot of money. So if he does it right, I don't know necessarily on year 1, but maybe year 2. I think right now a lot of these players are probably just testing the waters to see how it goes for Belichick at UNC year 1. And I think you could see the most impact for the Belichick effect going into the 2026 season, not really the 2025 season for me.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to what's going on right now. I mean, the playoff games that have occurred already, they were crazy. I mean, just on one side we had, Ohio State played Tennessee. Ohio State got the dub 42-17. And then right after that win, Ohio State went over to Oregon and beat Oregon 41-21 in a very comfortable manner. I mean, it didn't never seem like it was a close game at all. So that's why we now have Ohio State on one of these semifinal games. What do you guys? I mean, do you guys have any thoughts on that, or like thoughts on any of the other legs of this playoff?
Well, I think what we should do here, just because we have had some time away from the mic a little bit here and bringing some good stuff to our fans out there, let's just go team by team that's in the Final Four. I mean, obviously at that point we'd cover every game then. So it's been a little bit of time on Ohio State. We're not going to dive into the semifinals yet. We're going to save that for after this transition. But yeah, you talked about it, Dave. You see Ohio State go in and take care of business at home against Tennessee, 42-7 victory. I don't think any of us on this network saw it necessarily going like that. For me, we saw a totally different Ohio State offense. They finally began throwing the football. They finally began letting Will Howard unleash it. They finally started using Jeremiah Smith. They finally started using Emeka Egbuka. They didn't just try to be a in the trenches, run the ball down your throat type team. And the run worked too, but this Tennessee team for me was the biggest surprise of any of it. Absolutely, moment was way too big for Nico. We have spent all year, and I want to kick my own ass at this point because we spent all year talking about how if Nico finds it, Nico finds it, well, guess what? He didn't. So, I mean, maybe we'll start to see the podcast, on week 1 of next season and be like, okay, if Nico finds it in the 2025 season, they can be lethal. And I do believe that. And let's not disregard the fact that Tennessee, for me, never really had real receiver threats down the stretch. They had an abundance of receivers, but never had a guy that like the Jeremiah Smith effect, where you go out there and, Denzel Burke for Ohio State's like, I have to keep this guy in my hip pocket all game long. They just didn't have that. They let it all hang out on their run game. And credit to them that Dylan Sampson, stud. I mean, he carried that team all season long. And I think for me, that came even more to light in this playoff game against Ohio State. So, yeah, man, Ohio State was the much better football team. Ohio State is the most dominant football team in this playoff right now. And they absolutely whooped that ass. And Ryan Day reassured the fans that, hey, I'm fine. I just struggle against Michigan. That's it.
Yeah.
They let Chip Kelly run that offense, and things were humming. Shout out to them all the way around. Bryant, tell me what you saw in that Tennessee game as well, and then we can dive right into the Ohio State-Oregon one.
No, I definitely agree with you. I think the moment was a little big for Tennessee. They came into that game with some injuries as well. And you hit the nail on the head. We were always like, when's he going to pop off? He's got all the potential. This was the game to do it, and it didn't happen. So, the shoe is a tough place to play no matter what game it is, but a playoff game there in December it was just too much for Tennessee, obviously, and they basically got blown out. It was never even close.
I was trying to get one of you two to go to that game with me because the tickets weren't too expensive. Thank God we didn't go watch that ass beat. Thank God. Goodness gracious. But while we're still on Ohio State, they've talked about it. We have Ohio State. They beat the dog shit out of Oregon as well, 41-21. Fellas,
Yep.
that one to me was the most surprising playoff game I've seen yet. And not necessarily because Ohio State won, but because they won it in such a dominant fashion. And for me, you listen to people out there all over the place talking about how it wasn't because of the bye. And everybody has their own opinion. And I'm not going to tell you right now that my opinion's right. But, fellas, I'm here to tell you that bye, that showed its ugly head, in my opinion. They sat there stagnant for, 3 weeks before they played football? And more than likely in practice, you're not tackling your teammates, or you're at least not going 100% for 3 straight weeks laying your teammates out, right? Especially when you're the number 1 seed. You're not going in there and telling your defensive players to knock Evan Stewart's head off in practice when he's coming across the middle, not knock Tez Johnson's head off when he's coming across the middle. So I think for me, what you saw there is a team that was a little slow to start. And at that point, Ohio State was humming. Ohio State played the week before in dominant fashion like we just talked about, and they came in there and let the ball keep rolling. And obviously, you see Jordan James get hurt that game. You see Tez Johnson get dinged that game. You see Evan Stewart get dinged before they ever played that football game in warmups. Explain that one to me. I don't know. Not good look there. But, hey, another dominant win from Ohio State. That all-senior – I can't say all-senior, but damn near all-senior defense on that Ohio State side of the football is proving that they're going to leave it all out there for their football team and try to win a national championship.
Yeah, you brought up a good point that I wanted to bring up for all of these games. I mean, every single team that had a bye in this bracket is no longer in it. All the top 4 seeds are gone. So I think that's a big eye-opener for the committee and for all college football fans that maybe you don't want that bye. Yeah, you get further into playoffs without having to play a game, but I mean, I'd almost rather play the game and have that under my belt and have some, not just be so stagnant and rusty going into my first playoff game than to have that bye and the rest. So that was something that you pointed out, Colin, that I wanted to bring up. But going to this game, it was an impressive showing from Will Howard. I thought he was the person that won them this game. Obviously, Jeremiah Smith had the big game as well at the receiver, but Will Howard had to get him the ball. He was slinging it all over the place. I mean, we haven't seen this Will Howard at all this season. and hardly even saw them at K-State throwing the ball like this. So props to them, and I definitely agree with you. I think they're the team to beat right now in the playoff. They seem to be the most complete and team that's playing and clicking together right now out of the rest of the four that are left. So we'll see where they go from here. On the Oregon side, I definitely agree with you. I think it was a little rust, but the injuries and then also getting down so big early was just too high of a mountain to overcome. So they return a lot of players next year. Obviously, they're going to need to answer at quarterback position, but they'll still be a good team next season. I don't think this is a major step back for them, but still disappointing.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you guys, with both of you guys that like that does make a difference, especially with it being an impact sport. Maybe if you're not actually impacting, this is as impact heavy as it gets, other than maybe the UFC. So like, yeah, I think that makes a big difference. And I've heard talk that people are like considering, hey, maybe let's do 14, teams next year, and let's get everybody in. So I don't know, who knows, but the next we had Ohio State, Tennessee, and Oregon on one side of the bracket, and then on the other side we had Texas, Clemson, Arizona State, which obviously Arizona State was the number 4 seed, so they had a bye. But Texas played Clemson, and they beat them 38-24 in a game that I gave Dabo Swinney a lot of crap throughout the year, but he's kind of delivering on everything he did. And I hate to admit it, but just it is what it is. What did you guys think about, kind of how that played out with Texas playing Clemson? I don't know why I want Texas to play Oklahoma so bad.
Yeah, you're all over that Oklahoma train. They barely made a bowl game. But, hey, yeah, the Texas-Clemson thing, I mean, for me, I never felt like Clemson had a chance. I think this score showed way closer. I know it's still 14 points, but showed way closer than what I thought that football game actually was. Dude, Texas struggles running the football most of the time, and they ran that shit right down Clemson's throat from the start. They didn't have to have Quinn Ewers do anything crazy. They just kept handing the football off. They'd get in the red zone where they struggle on offense, Texas that is, and run it right in the end zone. No questions, no problems. They just kept doing their thing. I think for me, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit later when we do the little semifinal conversation, what you saw Texas do in this football game is the same thing you saw Texas do in the Arizona State game. They get really complacent. They did that against Texas A&M, their last game of the season. Got up early, got extremely complacent. So Texas, for me, has to finish football games. You're right. Dabo Swinney does deserve a little bit of credit. Let's not forget how he really got there. I mean, it never looked like Clemson was going to the playoffs, right? It never looked like they were going to the playoffs until Miami dropped it at the end of the season and shit down both legs, and it got Clemson in. So, yes, credit to them for getting there and going and winning the ACC championship. Credit to all that. But, yeah, I mean, Clemson could be a really good football team next year. I really do believe that. Dabo is dabbling in the portal a little bit. So I do want to give Clemson a little bit of credit. But also, Texas dominated that football game in every facet, I thought. I thought they dominated all over the field. And like I said, the score was way closer than what the game actually was, even at 14 points.
No, I definitely agree with you. That was exactly what I was going to say, is that the scoreboard makes it seem closer than the game actually was. I think Texas' offensive line, which we raved about all season, kind of reared their head in that game, and they were able to run the football and take a bunch of weight off of Quinn Ewers' shoulders. So definitely agree with you. I don't think that game was relatively close at all. Like you said, props to Clemson for getting there and winning the championship in the ACC and doing what they had to do to get there. But Texas definitely rolled in that game.
So I want to Dave, read us the score real quick from Texas, Arizona State, because I don't want to go at length on this game, but I want to have a little conversation about this football game more than we have the others probably.
Yeah, so Texas won 39-31, but this was a hell of a game if anybody watched it. Like if you watched it, it was a good game. Good game to watch.
This was the best playoff football game of this whole entire 12-team playoff in the FBS. And it wasn't until the second half. Yep. And I hate to be this guy. I hate to sit here and talk like this. I have seen so many things. Like Arizona State won that football game, in my opinion. Now, you could sit here and talk about the targeting play that wasn't called that would have put Arizona State in field goal range. The one preface I want to make on that, because people are just beating that one into the dirt, and I agree with them. I thought that was targeting. I really did. And I'm not an Arizona State fan. I'm not a Texas fan. Just when I was sitting on the couch watching football, I was really surprised that call was overturned. Now, Arizona State's field goal kickers suck ass. So they still had to go make that kick to win that football game. And there's no guarantee he would have. And I'm not trying to sugarcoat it. Their kickers are ass. They've been ass all season. You saw Dillingham really coaching against the field goal off, like any chance, like he was going to go for it. So the one thing that I want to talk about that doesn't get a whole lot of not recognition, but a whole lot of like limelight out, like a whole lot of spotlight is, fellas, you can go back and watch that replay where on that I think it was 4th and 13 when Texas had to score a touchdown to go to the next overtime. Matthew Golden did not fully complete that catch. Like it never even got a look. When he went to the ground, go watch it in slow motion. The whole laces of the ball roll when he goes to the ground. And nobody ever gave it even a look, which for me was a little surprising. I don't want to take anything away from what Texas did. They still won the football game, can't go back, can't change it. But he, in my opinion, didn't fully complete that catch. That would have changed everything. Arizona State would have won the football game because at that point, Texas had to score. Otherwise, it was over. So, like I just talked about, though, Texas has to play a full 4 quarters of football. They do not do that. They don't do that. They have a really good first half and just a real lethargic, complacent second half. Sarkisian has got to grab these guys by the face mask and be like, hey, look, if we are going to have a chance in hell against this running hot Ohio State football team, we have got to play 60 minutes of football. And if we go to overtime, we've got to play 70 minutes of football. Whatever it takes, we have to play a full game. You guys cannot get complacent, not get arrogant, not come out in the second half after halftime and look like a totally different football team. Play the full damn game, and you would have never had a doubt in this football game either.
No, I definitely agree with you. This game. It was kind of like Texas's schedule all season. Tale of two halves. They came out firing early. They scored 2 touchdowns in 3 plays. I thought to myself, "Well, this is going to be a blowout." Our book at second was all wrong, but obviously, as you can see, Arizona State came back. Scadaboo, Levitt. What's their receiver's name? Let me pull it up. I can't remember his last name.
Their best receiver is Jordan Tyson, who didn't play this game.
Yes, but Scadaboo was their best receiver, but Gilroy was doing very well. And then they had Omarie, that tight end. He was catching passes all over the place. So, credit to them. Some unknown players, as far as the country's concerned, gave Texas a run for their money. And Scadaboo also had a long touchdown pass as well. So, I definitely agree with you. There were some questionable calls. Personally, I don't think that was targeting, but that's just my opinion. So, but you can't put it all on the referees. You got to do what you got to do to go in and hit the game and go and win it, which Texas did. I still think they have a lot to improve on and have to play almost a perfect game to beat Ohio State, and we'll touch on that later. But they got to keep their foot in the gas, like you mentioned. Their special teams is really good. The Bolden, I can't remember his first name, Bolden, the guy that returns punts and kicks, he's almost like Turpin. Almost Silas Bolden, almost like Turpin on the Cowboys, can house it at any point. So that's something they got to get involved and get him involved on the game this coming week as well. So see what they can do, but credit to Texas for winning that game in 2 overtimes.
2 things before we move on to Notre Dame. Bryant, I have no pushback on your take of that not being targeting. Just my one thing on that I would lean to agree with you on it not being targeting and not putting it on officials. In that moment, I agree it's really hard to make that call because then it comes down to an official may have won the football game for their team. So I do respect that. I totally respect that. That I respect all of that. Also, Arizona State was a much lesser football team outside of Cam Scadaboo. Sam Levitt did outduel Quinn Ewers on that football game. I just wanted to shout out Arizona State's heart in that football game because it was truly proven that they wanted it more than Texas did. Texas just has a lot more talent.
I mean, Sam Levitt was running for his life that entire game. So if he couldn't scramble, if he wasn't a scrambling quarterback and could make plays outside the pocket, they were screwed. Obviously, he did. Quinn Ewers had better numbers than him, but Sam Levitt looked better on paper and passed the more of the eye test in that game. So, if you watch the game, you think Arizona State should have won, but Texas came out, and honestly, it was that quick start that won them the football game.
Absolutely. Dave, Tell us some Notre Dame scores.
Yeah. So on the other side, we had Notre Dame, Indiana, we had Georgia. First game right off the bat was Notre Dame, Indiana, because Georgia had a bye. So Notre Dame beat Indiana 27-17. And that was one of those games where, I'm not that upset about that score. Like, Indiana had a heck of a year. They made the playoffs. The first 12-team playoffs, they made it. They didn't have that bad of a showing. I mean, Curtis Rourke was 20 for 33, 215 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. But, man, they weren't even supposed to be in the thought for a playoff, So that's a heck of a year for them. And they held up with what I think is a very strong Notre Dame team. Riley Leonard didn't do a whole lot. I mean, it was 23 for 32, 201 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. But I just think the Notre Dame just a more well-rounded team too. And I just think Indiana just doesn't have that talent. Kind of similar situation to Texas versus Arizona State. Notre Dame just have a little bit more talent.
Well, Notre Dame out-talents them. Notre Dame was the home team. So, yes, I agree that's why they won the football game. But something that came out after Indiana had been eliminated, fellas, Curtis Rourke put on a torn ACL.
Credit to him. That is insane. How is that impossible?
For like multiple games.
Like, I don't know if people truly comprehend how vital your ACL is, even as a quarterback. Like, mind you, any kind of sport. Like, even
mind you, walk into your damn bathroom to brush your teeth.
Listen, we all know people that when we were in school, they had the little knee scooter because they tore that ACL. And here's this man playing, top level college football, and no one could tell, with Brady Cook from Mizzou, we kind of were like, I don't know, something's off, like he must be injured or something. But you couldn't tell. No one. This was earlier.
I thought Curtis Rourke, because everybody here that listens to us and you two know that I really rode Curtis Rourke. Like, I was a huge Curtis Rourke pusher, real believer in him, really thought he was getting his name in Heisman conversation. So I do think he regressed a little bit, but it all makes sense now. I'm like, rightfully so. Like, credit, I still can't wrap my head around this. The guy went out there, laced him up, tough as shit, played a playoff football game against a damn good Notre Dame defense with an ACL injury. That is absolutely unbelievable to me. And I agree with you. I don't feel like they ever had a chance in that football game. Like, once it kicked, I thought going into it they could win it. But, when the game actually kicked off and the lights were on and the moment was going, I knew fairly quickly, okay, this is Notre Dame winner. No questions asked. The Jeremiah Love, 98-yard touchdown right after Curtis Rourke threw an interception when they had a chance to go up 7-0 and quiet the crowd and take them right out of it. That for me was okay, that's a game-changing play even early on in the first half. That is a momentum shifter. Good game, good night. And that's really how that played out. The only other thing I would talk about is why Curt Cignetti gave them so much billboard material before the game started, and why Curt Cignetti came in so arrogant before all that was really damn stupid. Curt Cignetti, you had the greatest season of any coach in Division I this year, I thought, me personally, and you go in there and you give them all the bulletin board material for their locker room before the game started. Really, really dumb move on your part to overshadow what you really accomplished all season long. That's just my thoughts on that.
No, I definitely agree with you. I think this was another game similar to Tennessee and Ohio State, where the scoreboard, I think, indicates a closer game than it actually was. Indiana cut this game close there at the end of the fourth quarter to make it a 10-point game. So Notre Dame's defense has definitely been dominating this whole playoff. They're one of the better, if not the best defense in the playoffs that are still left, teams that are still left. So definitely showed in this game. I was going to mention, you already kind of mentioned it, Colin, that 98-yard touchdown in this game that Jeremiah Love had was the turning point, even though it happened so early. I think all the momentum just shifted over to Notre Dame at that point, and Indiana could not overcome it from there. So, huge season for Indiana. They're not typically known as a football team, but they were this year, so credit to them. We'll see if they can bounce back in 25 and have a similar season. So what do you want to talk about Notre Dame and Georgia?
Well, I think for me is this Notre Dame Georgia game. Dave, I was going to let you introduce the score, but you were muted while you were talking there, so I figured I'd take it. But it's 23-10. Notre Dame beats Georgia.
Average
Kind of
performance by Riley Leonard.
yes, and kind of a letdown football game for me, really, honestly.
It was a boring.
Yeah, Riley Leonard hasn't had to do a whole lot at all in this playoffs, honestly.
No,
he hasn't.
A lot of people are really high on him, but I'm like, looking at the stats, especially, like, I'm like, man, 15 for 24 for 90 yards, 1 touchdown, like, that's nothing to be, like, over the moon about, And then his previous game against Indiana also wasn't amazing, it was a decent game. But
his legs are the difference for them.
Yeah,
yes.
That's all it is. That's why earlier I was saying he'd be like my 3rd or 4th pick out of these Final Four teams at my quarterback position. So Gunnar Stockton to me looks better than Carson Beck. I know that sounds crazy to a lot of people, but I really think he did. Gunnar Stockton to me outplayed Riley Leonard, I thought. It doesn't necessarily show all the time because, my God, did you see how many drops Georgia had? Jesus Christ, somebody get this guy a receiver.
Dylan Bell, that man.
Oh, my God.
Everything.
Stone hands.
I mean, hit him in the chest, bouncing off right in front of you. Like, I don't know if I'm Gunnar Stockton. I am.
He dropped that long bomb.
Because he's
Gunnar Stockton threw a absolute drop it out of a bucket bomb down the middle of the field, and Dylan Bell just stone hands it.
Yeah. Like, if you look at Gunnar Stockton's stats for this game, 20 for 32, 234 yards, 1 touchdown. If Dylan Bell just catches the ones that he should have caught, Gunnar Stockton is probably 25 and 32, and that is incredible.
And to be fair, it wasn't just Dylan Bell. You saw everybody all the way around.
I think if you just correct Dylan Bell's mistakes,
that's fair.
Gunnar Stockton could have had an amazing game statistically if they would have just caught the darn ball.
Well, and that was like a momentum-shifting play. Like, when he dropped that, I was like, holy shit, man. This Gunnar Stockton cat is playing his little ass off, and he's getting no help. Like, he's got no help right now. He's trying to do this all on his own. We talked all season on this network how we thought Georgia's run game was subpar. I thought it proved that again. I just don't think they have much. I really don't. Like, credit to Kirby Smart for being a really good football coach. I'm not a fan. I think he's kind of a tool, I'll be honest with you. But, he is a fantastic X's and O's, go-get-it-done football coach. And I think that's the only reason they were even in this situation. We saw Carson Beck all season not be great. Georgia, I'm pretty sure, legit led the country in drop passes. So, this was just a not very good Georgia football team that had really good coaching around them. Obviously, loads of talent. Their offensive line's fine. Their defense is stout. I can't say they don't have loads of talent, but they really didn't have difference makers on the offensive side of the ball, in my opinion, at all. I thought that for a long time, and I think it really showed here.
Yeah, I think this was opposite of a lot of the games we talked about. I think this game was closer than the scoreboard indicates. Notre Dame pulled ahead late. The first touchdown wasn't scored until very, very end of the second quarter there in this game. So, Notre Dame, credit to them. They had to move the sticks, and they did it whenever they did. Notre Dame, Riley Leonard had a few 4th down conversions on his own using his legs, 80 yards on the ground. That was a difference maker, I think, in this game. But Georgia's defense did all they could to try to hold Notre Dame's offense back. Notre Dame was definitely the better offense in this game. But that being said, I think Notre Dame's defense as well also held Georgia's rushing attack in check, like you mentioned, and limited the big plays on offense. So, credit to Notre Dame. Their defense is kind of their backbone, and they've been showing up in this playoffs. So we'll see if they can continue it here tomorrow.
Dave, give us the Penn State. We know you love Penn State, even though you're still muted trying to talk about them. We know you love Penn State. You gave me all kinds of shit all season long about them. So go ahead and tell me what the scores were so far.
So on the other side of the last leg of this bracket, we got Penn State, SMU, and Boise State, which obviously had a bye because they were a great team throughout the year. So first game was Penn State versus SMU. I mean, that game was never close. I mean, I didn't ever think it was – at all times, you kind of knew Penn State was going to win. I mean, everyone just executed I'm pretty sure their backup quarterback, their third-string quarterback played in this game.
Listen. There was a moment in time where SMU actually could have took control in that football game early. Kevin Jennings, there was a 4th and 1 play and if I remember correctly, because this was a couple weeks ago now, the score was either 0-0 or I'm pretty confident it was 0-0. 4th and 1, SMU's got the ball in scoring territory. Kevin Jennings is rolling right. All right, it's 4th and 1. He has 4 yards of green grass ahead of him to go get that first down, and instead he does a little flip to the guy in the end zone, if you guys remember, that should have caught the football. He got blown up from the backside. I agree, got hit hard, but should have caught the football. Would have been 7. Would have went up 7-0 early, took full control of that football game. But, hey, they didn't. And from that moment on, you saw Kevin Jennings just completely spiral out of control. My God, that dude was seeing – he didn't want to go back out in the field. You
talk
can't
about the lights being too big.
Yes. You cannot convince me in the 3rd and 4th quarter he was like, yeah, I want to go back out there. No, he didn't. He had no interest in going back out there.
That was just a terrible time.
And for me, like in this football game, like I didn't think Drew Aller was anything spectacular. I really didn't. I think just the turnovers gave Penn State all the momentum, all the plus territory, gave them everything they wanted. Tyler Warren, the most talented guy in the football game again, in my opinion. But outside of that, fellas, I mean, don't get me wrong, Nick Singleton and Katron Allen, obviously 2 of the best in the business. But, like, I really thought SMU could win this football game, and it's a lot to ask, but I think you eliminate those dipshit turnovers. Like, I think SMU would have been at least 1 possession. So
absolutely. It was just like I mentioned just now. This is just way too big of a spotlight, I think, for SMU. And once they had that turnover in the end zone that you mentioned, it was just spiraling downhill from there. But credit to Penn State. Yes, they did force a lot of turnovers, and their defense has also been very good all season, similar to Notre Dame's. So, this game, like Dave mentioned, was also never close after that interception you talked about. So, credit to SMU. This was also a very good season, a lot better first year in the ACC for them to make the playoff is impressive. So, good season for them. Penn State, let's see if they can keep it rolling. Dave, how did the Penn State Boise State game go?
Well, I'm just gonna give you guys a score. I'm gonna let Colin talk all about it because I know he's a big Ashton Jeanty fan. So let me go ahead and tell you what the score was. It was 31-14. And hey, respect the Boise State. I won't say Boise State. I'd probably say Ashton Jeanty because going into this game, Penn State knew their only game plan had to be stop Ashton Jeanty and make Maddox Madsen nervous. Just get him nervous. And I think Penn State, I don't know. People are saying like Ashton Jeanty shouldn't have won. Look at his last game. Like, there's no way. That's why he didn't win the Heisman. But no, he still had a good game considering.
Dude, they put 8 in the box against his ass.
Yeah,
they put 8 in the box against him, and he ran for 104 yards.
104 yards, and they knew they were going to him most of the time. And that was the only, like, if you have a good quarterback, you don't know what they're going to do. But they just knew. So, like, hey, that just, if anything, to me, that goes to show, like, he's just that guy. Like, he still put up 100 yards, and they knew he was coming every time.
Well, I think for me, like, you would see Ashton Jeanty get popped in the backfield and still at least fall forward or keep trying to fight for extra yards. Like, and we can't just say Ashton Jeanty because Maddox Madsen threw for 304 yards, but he also had 3 interceptions. This game was 31-14, and I think it was a closer game than the score showed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Boise State had 4 turnovers, and at one point late in the game, they were only down like 10. Like, they were in this football game with 4 turnovers. Like, if they just don't shit the bed on those 4 turnovers, they might have won this football game. Like this, like we talk, and at some point we got to find the common denominator here. That's the Penn State defense, right? We just talked about how if SMU didn't have these 3 interceptions, it would have been a lot tighter of a football game. We're talking right now how Boise State was actually really in that football game. This was a competitive football game. To me, they proved that, hey, they were a playoff caliber football team. I don't think they weren't after seeing this. But you eliminate those 4 turnovers, they might win this damn football game. So, common denominator, Penn State defense, absolutely spectacular. That is why, to me, Penn State is the second best of the 4 remaining teams in the playoffs. And I don't know, I may be giving you a spoiler for later, but the Penn State defense is arguably the second best unit of all the teams in the playoffs behind Ohio State's offense.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with this game, Colin. Like you mentioned, I think this game was a lot closer. I remember watching it and thought Boise State had a chance there at the end, but they kept shooting themselves in the foot. And you're totally right. Common denominator is Penn State's defense. I think they're going to lean heavily on them the rest of the season. They make it to the national championship after the game tomorrow. But credit to them, their offense has done just enough to win them the games, and their defense is forcing turnovers to make it less stressful on them. So another good season for Boise State. Ashton Genty, go make yourself a bag in the NFL. Hopefully he gets drafted high into a good team. And we'll get to watch him on Sundays and look forward to see what Penn State can do the rest of these few games here.
Dave, it's time, my brother. Take us into the semifinals.
So into the semifinals, on one side we got Ohio State playing Texas, and on the other side we got Notre Dame and Penn State. So first and foremost, let's talk about the first game, which is tomorrow, which I guess will be today for you guys that are going to be listening to this live, because we always record a day in advance. So, yeah, it's going to be Thursday, January 9th. This is going to be the Orange Bowl at 6:30 p.m. on ESPN, and this is in Miami Gardens. What a great weather place to play than Miami. So, yes, Notre Dame's going up, number 6 Notre Dame going up against number 7 Penn State. And, this is a defense, a big game where the defense is going to make a big difference. Colin, you've already talked thoroughly about how good their defense is. Notre Dame's defense is also good, but they're banged up. They're the number 8 ranked defense in the country. But these offenses, they just like to run the ball out, and they also have good defenses. So I think this might be a pretty slow and not the most exciting game. But I think it's still going to be a good game regardless. What do you guys think? I think Penn State's probably going to run with this one.
Go ahead, Brian.
No, I definitely agree with you, Dave. I have some close friends that are massive Notre Dame fans, and they like to rub it in all the time because I always bicker about Mizzou. But I'm trying to look at this game being unbiased because I do have some deep down hatred for Notre Dame. But looking at this game with non-rose colored glasses from that standpoint, yes, these two teams are very evenly matched. They do basically the same thing. They control opposing offenses on the defensive side of the ball. And then they like to run the ball and run it a lot, whether that's with the quarterback or with the running backs. I think the big key in this game is injuries. Which team can overcome the star players they have on their team being injured? I'll start with Notre Dame. On offense, Jeremiah Love re-injured a knee injury that was aggravating him the past few weeks. We don't even know if he's going to play. We'll see. They do have some good backups in Aeneas Williams and a few others. So I think that would be not a huge step back for them from that standpoint, but it would still be a big loss. On their defensive side, they have Riley Mills also out for them. I think that's a bigger loss probably than Jeremiah Love, at least on paper. But we'll see if they can overcome those. On the flip side, Abdul Carter is probably Penn State's best player on defense. He is, I think, a game time decision tomorrow or today, however you want to look at it. I think that's a big point in this game is which team can overcome the injuries that they're sustained here late into this playoff run and get the win. Like I mentioned, it's going to be it's going to be a fight between strengths on both of these teams, and we'll see who comes out on top.
I think, too, like you just talked about some injuries, and I totally agree with you. I think the Riley Mills loss for Notre Dame's defense is bigger than the Jeremiah Love loss on
Mm-hmm.
the offense because I think Jadarian Price is just as talented as Jeremiah
Yep.
Love. So for me, I think the Riley Mills loss hurts because of the attack that Penn State's going to come at them with. They are going to run it right down their throats, and they are going to lean on them. I do agree that the Abdul Carter injury, if he does not play, it looks like he's going to play, and I fully expect him to
Mm-hmm.
go out there and play. Probably not 100%, which could be big, but I mean, a 80% Abdul Carter is better than most defensive players in the country still. I think that Penn State has the 2 best players in this football game, one being Abdul Carter and 2 being Tyler Warren. I don't think Notre Dame has any offensive threat anywhere near the caliber that Tyler Warren is. And I would still, even with 100% healthy Jeremiah Love, I would still give the lean to Singleton and Katron Allen. I would give the lean probably to Penn State's offensive line. I would probably give my lean to Penn State's defensive line. I know there may be some people that don't agree with me on this, but I think the biggest gap between these two teams is the secondaries. I think Notre Dame's secondary is top-notch, top-tier, very spectacular. Xavier Watts is one of the best, if not the best, in the business. And for me, if I'm Marcus Freeman in Notre Dame, I'm coming to this football game saying, look, do not lose sight of Tyler Warren. Make them beat us with the run game. That's fine. Don't let any Tyler Warren explosive plays, especially on third downs. You see them on third downs pretty well solely go to Tyler Warren. If I'm Notre Dame, I'm playing some bracket coverage, and Xavier Watts is in his hip pocket everywhere he goes. If Tyler Warren goes to the sidelines, Watts goes to the sidelines. If Tyler Warren goes to take a shit in the Porta-John, Xavier Watts is taking a shit in the Porta-John. Wherever Tyler Warren goes, Xavier Watts is going. Like, that is truly my diagnosis of this football game. That is the approach that I would take. Do not lose sight of him. Hell, make Drew Aller, go make plays himself outside Tyler Warren. Like, Harrison Wallace is fine, but maybe make Harrison Wallace beat you or something. Don't let it be Tyler Warren. Don't let it be the same damn thing over and over. And on the flip side of that, if I'm Penn State, it's 8 in the box all game long. I'm making Riley Leonard air this bitch out. I'm making him come at me with everything he's got throwing the football because I don't think he's got it throwing the football. I have been an extreme, I can't say hater because I think he's good and I think he's a really nice human being. I've watched plenty of interviews. I've listened to him on some radio shows. A humble guy, nice guy, has a great story. But, dude, he's not that good of a passer at all. So I'm just calling it how it is. Make him beat you throwing the football. Faison, that dude was playing lacrosse, not too long ago. That is their number one receiver, and I'm going to make those guys beat me if I'm Penn State. So I think they're very similar football teams, and Riley Leonard's legs are lethal. On third downs, he looks to get out of the pocket and go make a play.
Yep.
Hell, on first and second down, he looks to get out of the pocket and go make a play. So like I said, bracket cover Tyler Warren, and don't lose sight of Riley Leonard ever. Don't let him out of the pocket because he is lethal running the football. One question I do have for you guys before we move on to the next semifinal game is, who's got the better coaching staff? Who's got the better head coach? Who do you trust more here?
Oh, I knew this question was coming.
I'm going Marcus Freeman.
Tough.
I like Marcus Freeman and what he's done.
Marcus Freeman lost to Northern Illinois at home this year, Dave.
Yeah, but look at where they're at now. What's that matter? Let's look at Ohio State.
If they somehow, like I said, that's way. We can't compare Northern Illinois to that shit. For me, it's I still brought this up when the playoffs started. I said if Notre Dame goes and wins this shit, fellas, we are going to have to tell everybody that their one loss the season they won a national championship was to Northern Illinois University, who, shall I remind you, just joined the Mountain West Conference. A Mountain West Conference team that is mid-tier Mountain West Conference level team now beat Notre Dame at home. So you're going to comfortably say Marcus Freeman. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just pushing back.
100%.
I like Penn State's coaching staff better, but I like Marcus Freeman as a head coach more than James Franklin.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you both. I thought both these teams could have moved on from both these coaches, and I think they'd still both be right here. I know that sounds crazy. I don't think Penn State's in the Final Four because of James Franklin, and I don't think Notre Dame's in the Final Four because of Marcus Freeman. I think you put maybe a little better coach on both. You put Kirby Smart on Penn State this year, and Penn State's the front runner, the number one seed, and probably going to win the damn thing. So it's unfair for me to do this because I asked you guys the question and I don't really know how I'd answer it. I guess I'll say James Franklin just because you guys both picked Marcus Freeman. And I would say maybe James Franklin because James Franklin wins the games that James Franklin's supposed to win. Just doesn't win the big ones. Whereas Marcus Freeman doesn't even win the games he's supposed to win sometimes. Hence a Stanford, a Marshall, Northern Illinois. So, I mean, it's honestly very, very coin flippy.
Depends how you look at it. If you talk about X's and O's, James Franklin all the way. But if you talk about a coach that makes you want to play for him, it's 100,000% Marcus Freeman.
Yeah, because there's a lot of times where Marcus Freeman, I'm like, dude, kick the field goal, right? What are you doing? Or there's so many moments in history of Marcus Freeman's coaching tenure, which is a short one as a head coach, where I was like, dude, that was really stupid. So as long as he doesn't let the moment be too big for him in this football game, yeah, I could totally agree with you guys on the Marcus Freeman take. I just had to ask that question because I am not a fan of either one of these coaches. I'm really not a fan of any of the Final Four coaches, honestly. So, Dave, with that being said, tell us who the next two are.
So on Friday, January 10th, we've got the Cotton Bowl. That is at 6:30 p.m. on ESPN, and that's going to be in Arlington, Texas, which the funny fact is it's number 5 Texas playing against number 8 OSU.
It ain't a home game. Ohio State travels way too good to let this be a home game. I'm throwing that out there.
It won't be.
But here's the thing, though. With the weather the way it is, they're talking about that could delay flights. So whether they want to get there or not, if the weather says no, it's just not going to be no. And
leave early.
Oh, dude, they're already there, man.
Yeah, they're leave early.
But no. But yeah, I mean, this one, I don't know. I think this. I don't think this is going to be close. Y'all are, on Monday when we talk about it, you guys might be like, you were an idiot. It was a close game, but I don't think so. I mean, Texas offense has been,
It depends. Hang on, you got to answer that. You don't think it's going to be close? You better tell us right now which way you think it's not going to be close, because me and Bryant might agree with you.
Ohio State,
without a doubt. I don't think it's close either.
I mean, Ohio State is just on all cylinders right now.
This just seems so much of like a lock to me that it's kind of scary.
Yeah, like that's
not scary, but like it seems in my own head
obvious.
A little fishy.
It seems obvious, right?
Yes.
I think the only question that I have in the back of my mind is, does it finally go wrong for Ohio State because it's been so damn right? If that makes any sense. Like, it's been so damn good that at this point, does it go so damn bad? That is it for me, because Texas's defense can generate some pressure on Will Howard.
Yeah, but Ohio State has looked so much better against way better teams.
Way better.
Without a doubt. I just said I think Ohio State blows them out. I'm just trying to like have that little guy on this shoulder being like, hey, don't be too sure of this. But
I think the only way this game is close is if Texas can somehow control the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, because I do think they have a somewhat of an advantage on the offensive line. And I don't think their defensive line is any better or worse than Ohio State, but the only way they win this game is if they can control the line of scrimmage. And I think Ohio State is better in every other aspect.
Okay, so let me ask both of you guys this question. Will Howard or Quinn Ewers?
Will Howard.
Will Howard.
Ohio State's receivers or Texas's receivers?
Ohio State.
Yeah, I would probably go.
It's not. It's not. That to me is the biggest gap.
That's not even close.
Any of it. Texas's offensive line or Ohio State's offensive line?
I think I'll go Texas there.
Okay, and I agree with that. I agree with all that across the board.
Yeah, I'd go Texas too. Yeah.
Texas's secondary or Ohio State's secondary?
Ohio State.
I'm going Texas because Jahdae Barron is the only hope that I was getting to this point.
That's true.
Jahdae Barron is the only hope in hell I think that Texas has in this football game. Seriously. He's the number 1 per PFF cover corner at his job in the country, and he's battling against the number 1 graded receiver in the country per PFF as well.
So this is going to be a heck of a matchup the whole game.
If you're going to watch anything in this football game other than just a football game, watch the matchup between those two. That is truly, to me, the only hope that Texas has. Because if Jahdae Barron can somehow slam the door on Jeremiah Smith, and I don't think he does, but if he can, then Texas's chances become 100 times greater, because I do think Texas's defensive line, who I think is better than Ohio State's defensive line, not that they match up, I'm just, comparing apples to apples on that. Texas's defensive line can truly actually slow down Ohio State's rushing attack. I'm a firm believer in that. And Texas's defensive line can generate pressure on Will Howard if Jeremiah Smith's not just running free and open down the sidelines. And I think you see times where even if he's not free and open, if Texas can get home on Will Howard's going to throw it up to Jeremiah Smith. Now, I still think Jeremiah Smith might catch that damn football, but with Jahdae Barron, it's going to be a whole lot tougher. So I'm just truly trying to find the only way Texas is in this football game. I want to say I think Steve Sarkisian can outcoach Ryan Day, because I really do think he can.
I agree with you there.
But I think Chip Kelly is like the ultimate X factor on the flip side of that. Like, I think if I'm Ryan Day, I'm just going to keep handing the keys of the Lambo to Chip Kelly here and be like, hey, dude, just keep doing your damn thing. And I also want to point out that when I watch that Ohio State defense being almost all seniors, like those guys just look hungry, man. Like they look like they know this is their chance. They look like they want it. And for me, that elevates them to another caliber than what they. It's like the Arizona State effect, right? Except you sprinkle in
Mhm.
the fact that they're actually really good and talented too. Like they're like, hey, this is our last hoorah, man. We all came back from last year's bullshit for this shit right here. Now is the time. And like you see, like Jack Sawyer, who looks to be the captain and the leader of that defense. That dude looks like he might chew on paper and beer bottles in the locker room before the game and bash his head into the lockers. So I'm Ohio State big. I just keep trying to tell myself to find a way for Texas to keep it close, and I just don't think it's there.
No, definitely agree with you. I like your take with Jade Barron. I think he's their only chance. If he can somehow lock down Jeremiah Smith, that gives them the chance. But then you still have Ibuka and that double-headed rushing attack. And as well as Will Howard's been playing, he's going to find open receivers if one guy's getting locked down. So I don't know. I agree with you. Ohio State's big. Texas could get Isaiah Bond back. That would help.
That
But
would
I
be
think
huge.
that'd be huge, but I don't know if that's going to happen. He seems to be pretty banged up with that leg injury. So, Texas has
Everything
played
I
some.
see, Bryant, Isaiah Bond appears to be like he's probably going to be okay to go.
Well, that's good. I mean, that's going to be good to see from that standpoint. He's a hell of a wide receiver and probably one of their best, if not the best. Matthew Golden has been playing better in these playoffs, and honestly, he's probably won them 2 football games from an offensive standpoint. But I think Ohio State just takes away everything that Texas can do, and I think even if the game is relatively close, I think Ohio State's offense is going to prevail in the end. It's just the moral of the story. But
I
like I said,
just
something deep inside of me is like, man, you're overlooking something here in this game that's going to come back and bite us on Monday.
it's dude for me truly it's Texas's secondary. Like if
Mm-hmm.
there's a team that can take away Ohio State's passing attack, it's Texas's secondary. Like Andrew Makuba, Malik Tapp, I think's his name. I'm trying to pull it up. Michael Tapp, sorry, and I'm thinking of Malik Muhammad. Like those are, and you sprinkle in Jade Barron with that. Those are guys that are next level defenders, and they hit
Mm-hmm.
hard. This is going to be the best secondary that Will Howard's going to throw on all season. That's including Oregon. I mean, Oregon is Swiss cheese compared to this Texas secondary. It is truly Texas's secondary versus Ohio State's receivers. That will be the deciding factor. If Ohio State gets open, I agree with you, Mika Ibuka, stud. Carnell Tate is really good too. If Texas is, like I said, I'm just trying to push back. If Texas'
Yep.
secondary performs like they have all season, they are so damn good, dude. Vernon Broughton can bring the pressure. Is it Anthony Hill or Antoine Hill, the linebacker for
Yep. And
Texas?
they got Colin Simmons too, is very good as well. So
They are actually star studded. Like it's going to be
Texas's defense has to play A
five
plus
star.
100% 5-star
Yep.
game to keep them in this game.
And coming right back to it, man, I just don't think Texas's offense is worth a damn. And I think you're going to see Ohio State's defense expose that. Like Matthew Golden, we're talking about Matthew Golden, who is now Texas's best receiver, who, dude, may not even run out on the field for Ohio State's offense, truthfully.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know. Maybe you
I
see
know
a
we
big
talked
game
about
from
it.
Gunnar Helm. I don't know.
Yeah, I know we talked about it last week or the previous show before everything started, and I don't really see it. But do you guys see any Arch Manning action in this game? Like just a
No,
No,
curveball, throw it coming out of left field, like try to catch him by surprise.
the only chance I see Arch Manning honestly touch the field, and now he'll probably play on the first drive, but the only chance I see Arch Manning touch the field in this football game is because Texas's red zone offense is so dog shit at times that like maybe he comes in to mix it up because
Yeah.
Ohio State's red zone defense is really good. Like when they played Penn State, dude, they proved that they're okay with letting teams get in the red zone and they're just going to slam the door on them. So
Mhm.
I think that's the only chance you see Arch Manning for me in this
Yeah.
football game. Or
I
unless
didn't
Quinn
think
Ewers
so
gets
either.
hurt, obviously.
Yeah, I didn't think so either. But I was just trying to think of a way that maybe Texas has, something in the bag that hasn't been seen this season that they might try to pull. And, they could definitely get some plays that Quinn Ewers can't run with Arch Manning that he definitely could. So I don't know, just a thought. I know we discussed it earlier on. So
This is the time, right? I
yeah,
mean, because don't hold anything back here, because I think if Texas wins this football game, they'd go be the favorite in the national championship against Penn State or Notre Dame, either one.
mm-hmm.
So like this is it right here. Like to your point, don't hold anything back at this time. And with that, I don't really have anything else to add. I mean, I feel like we hammered this game pretty good. I just watch the receivers on Ohio State versus secondary Texas. I think whoever wins those battles wins this football game. Texas does not want to track meet. They can't score with them.
Absolutely not.
All right, question. Can we all agree this national championship is going to be Ohio State and Penn State, right? We can all agree on that, or it should be anyhow on paper.
Yes, that is what, if I'm looking at it right now, I think we have a Big Ten national championship matchup. Yes, the books and the odds and Vegas disagrees with you and us. I think Bryant's in the same boat as you and I, Dave, but Vegas disagrees with us because they have Notre Dame as the favorite. And I think that what we just kind of talked about, and I think before you even brought that up, really kind of spoiled some of our picks in the book it segment, but I think we made it very obvious the directions that we were leaning already. So, I mean, I'm with you. So, Dave, fire right into the book it segment because that's where we're at right now, and that's essentially what you're talking about. So,
yeah, absolutely. So, hey, the segment everybody loves, book it segment. Everybody likes to make money. What do we say? Scare money don't make money, right? So we're 80-16 on the season, 7-9 through the playoffs, and this time we're taking 4 bets because we've only got 2 games. So Brian, what do we have for the Ohio State Texas? What do we got there? What are you thinking?
So this line's actually moved a little bit. It was higher. Ohio State was a bigger favorite, but now they're at -5.5. We're going to take Ohio State -5 by the hook. Book that right there. And in this game, the over/under is 53.5. So we're going to buy the hook as well, and we're going to take the over 53 in this game. Yeah, I think we all think Ohio State's going to win and cover. But we do think there's going to be some points scored in this game. So we're going to book it. Ohio State -5 and over 53 on the total score of the game.
you can book that shit, baby. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. How about in that Penn State Notre Dame game, Colin? What we got?
Yeah, so like we just talked about, we're going to go against the grain a little bit here. We are going to lean Penn State. The line is Penn State +1.5. We always buy the hook here on this network. We're going to make it Penn State +2. You can book it. Hey, in the same game, we're going to double dip. Take a little Penn State, Notre Dame. The under is sitting at 45.5 right now. Buy the hook, make it 46. Comfortably take the Penn State, Notre Dame under 46. Book it. Dave,
Hey.
Let's point something back out again real quick one time. You talked about our book it segment record, 80-69. Everybody that's listening out there, we are 11 games over on this. Yes, we are 7-9 through the playoffs, but if you guys remember the first episode that we came to you with the playoffs, we said we are going to take over-unders and spreads in every football game, even if we didn't like something, because we wanted 2 plays in every game because, hey, it's the damn playoffs. It's the playoffs. So we're sprinkling everything. I can comfortably say with Bryant and Dave right now that I am comfortable with all 4 of these right here. I can sniff a 4-0 segment right here. And what a cap that would be going to the national championship. Book that shit. Follow us. Don't fade us. Hop on the train. Deep Threat Sports Network is back, and we're hot, baby.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, hey, as you guys know, our Book It segment is kind of where we wrap things up. You know, we talked a lot of playoff football. We talked transfer portal. We talked the FCS National Championship. We've talked Book It. You guys know what's coming on Thursday, on Friday, and then on January 20th, of course. That is on a Monday, in case you guys need to ask off from work for that one, because I don't know who just puts the national championship on a Monday. But that's going to be at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia at 7:30 p.m. through ESPN. So if you don't got ESPN, get it. And if you don't have it, you might have to ask a buddy. So make sure you tune in on January 20th. We're going to bring you more coverage after this weekend leading into the national championship. But hey, worst case scenario, you can make money with us. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So, hey, stay tuned with us. We're going to keep bringing good content. We're going to stick to a more regular segment now that the holidays are over. So you're going to hear from us at least once a week, whether you want to or not. If you've got us, you follow us, you're going to hear us. So I'm going to shoot it over to Colin. See if he's got anything for us, see if Bryant's got anything for us, and then that's going to wrap it up for today.
Hey, real quick, I'm going to wrap it up here. Thanks for hanging with us. Like Dave said, and we've said many a times now, the holidays, the sicknesses, everything's been super hectic for us. But, hey, we're settled back in, and we are going to be coming at you regular like we used to once a week. We are going to dive into everything, especially when the season's over. Thanks for sticking around with us. Absolutely love the playoff situation so far. Love playoff football, even if it's blowouts. But I think we're going to get some good games this week here. And cannot wait to come back next week and review them with you guys and give you some more coverage and start a full dissect of the national championship. Once again, that's Dave. That's Brian. Follow us on X at DT_sports_, Facebook, Deep Threat Sports Network, YouTube, Deep Threat Sports, Spotify, Deep Threat Sports, TikTok, Deep Threat Sports Network, Instagram, Deep Threat Sports with a Z. Dave, Brian, I'm Colin. Hey, fellas. We're back, baby, and we're running hot, and we're back on the regular schedule. But until next time, gentlemen, peace.